My name's Stacy Rutland. I'm the founder of Basic Income March, as well as the Income Movement. It's really lovely to have you all here today. I want to, on behalf of Income Movement, as well as our sponsors, Fund for Humanity and Steady, I want to welcome you to this live stream 2020, the Year of Basic Income. Before we move into our program tonight, I wanted to just take a moment to really give a moment for all of us together to recognize the passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Just found out about that right before this, and I'm pretty emotional about it, so I'm sorry that to bring that here, but I think that it's really an important passage of one of the most, kind of important mavericks of our judicial system, and really just sending our thoughts and warm feelings to her family right now, and to all of the amazing people that she touched personally, that she worked with, as well as to the rest of the nation, because we know that this is a heavy moment for so many of us. Tonight we're here together really to take stock of and pay homage to the work that we've done together collectively as a community this year for the movement for basic income. So what we have for you tonight is 25 leaders across the globe that have been fighting and working for basic income this year, and them bringing together their thoughts, their vision, as well as the most important and pressing work that they've been completing this year, and how that is really helping fuel the larger movement that we know we need to continue to grow in order for us to have a basic income in place, not only here in the United States, but in countries around the world. Now, because of COVID-19 this year, we have the Basic Income March tomorrow, the 19th. 46 cities across the globe are participating in the Basic Income March. And because this year with COVID, many of those events are not actually marches. They are street corner protests, car parades or bike parades, art installations. People are getting very creative in ways that we can all come together, publicly demonstrate, but still practice safe social distancing. And because of that, it's hard in those kinds of events to actually have opportunities for speakers to come forward, for leaders of the basic income community to come together and speak. And so what we thought this year that we would do is actually have a live stream such as this, where we can bring together leaders, really be able to have an opportunity for the global community to come together and take stock in the progress that we've made. So I'm going to speak for just a minute or two about the Basic Income March, and then I want to move very quickly into the program that we have for you, because it's both exciting and powerful. So this is the second annual Basic Income March. So last year was our first March. The March was really born from Diane Pagan and James Felton Keith, two activists in the basic income community in New York City, coming together and deciding that beyond just group gatherings in cafes and community centers, that there was a real need to get out into the public and demonstrate for basic income. And together with Income Movement, as well as Fund for Humanity, we came together with Diane and James and started to think about what an event in New York City could look like. But very quickly we recognized that there was a potential for this to become a national, really a national event. And as we started to reach out to our partners and other organizations, we realized that it was actually an opportunity for a global event, because there was so much interest around the globe and across all the different organizations that have been working for and fighting for basic income for in some situations for decades. So Last year we had our first march. Over the course of 5 weeks, managed to pull together 30 cities across the globe on 5 continents to hold marches and a variety of different events. It was really exciting and wonderful. In some ways, that was the fuel for Income Movement to know that establishing our organization made sense, that there was an appetite and interest, and that the timing was really right to start thinking about the building of a movement. With that, because this year with COVID, we really anticipated that we would have a significant smaller number of cities that would be participating this year in the march. But because of so many important parts of what happened this year, and we're going to talk about a lot of this year, and both from what's happened in the kind of social economic side of things, but also the response of the basic income community to that. But because of that, we really did anticipate a smaller number, but we've been really happy to see that that we actually greatly increased our number of cities participating this year. It's 46, like I said. Really excited to have so many new cities involved and new organizers. We've really built a strong, amazing community specifically around this series of events. So I want to go ahead and move into the beginning of our program. I think our most important thing here to start out with is really understanding where we were and how far we've come. And really, in many ways, the people that we thought that could best lay that foundation are Andy Stern and Andrew Yang. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to them to go ahead and share some of their thoughts and ideas around how they've seen this movement grow and what we have to look forward to. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to them.
4 years ago, I released my book, Raising the Floor, which was a discussion of the future of work and the need for America to adopt a universal basic income. I think it would be fair to say that when I released the book, I was not overwhelmed with the support I received from friends in the labor movement or the policy world or the political establishment. In fact, other than a strong group of supporters for universal basic income, mostly in academia, the idea that had once been promoted by Thomas Paine and Richard Nixon and economists throughout this country had really fallen to the sideline of the policy agenda. And yet, here we are today, with universal basic income being the forefront and a major issue of consideration on the America agenda for the future. We now see that a majority of Americans support a universal basic income, including overwhelming support of African American and Latino Americans. We saw Andrew Yang run a phenomenal campaign to be president of the United States, and the idea of a universal basic income at its center. The income movement, the Economic Security Project, and now the mayors for guaranteed income, who are promoting experiments throughout the country, have given new life to an idea that could become the core of social policy in the 21st century. I'm so proud that this happened because all of us worked together. It was not just a matter of policy, but politics and organizing. And people have approached and talked and wrangled this issue with so many of those in leadership in our country that all of a sudden it is getting a fresh look. I always like to say that change, it's inevitable. It's progress that's optional. And universal basic income, ending poverty as we know it, giving everyone a secure future, a strike fund, a way to walk away from bad jobs or bad marriages, is the social policy of the future and is what America needs. So keep doing what you're doing because it's working, and particularly the organizing and the work we're doing with political figures across the country, but most importantly, with average Americans who will be the greatest beneficiaries of a universal basic income. Universal basic income can change lives, and with our help, it will.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Basic Income March live stream. This is so exciting. This movement has come so far since I started running for president back in 2017. Officially, publicly, it says 2018, but the fact is, I was I was working on it in 2017. And back when I was running, then universal basic income was not really on the political radar. And look at us now. Now 55% of Americans are on board with the fact that we should have universal basic income immediately and in perpetuity. 75% of Americans are for cash relief during this pandemic. If you think about 2020, what can you get 75% of Americans on board with? Not a whole heck of a lot. And I dare say that cash relief will end up leading directly to universal basic income, in large part because when you give people these resources in our hands, then people love it. Economists have looked at it and said that even that April stimulus, though it was not sufficient, it still did an immense amount of good. You're seeing folks like Kamala Harris, who ran on a particular version of universal basic income and is right now for $2,000 a month cash relief, who's going to be the vice presidential nominee and hopefully our next vice president. So this movement has already come so far, and now we just need to keep on pushing until universal basic income becomes the law of the land. And that's why we need your help and your support. It's activists like you who are going to get on the ground or call or reach out to folks and make sure that Congress does the right thing. Congress helps move this economy forward to a point where it's working for us. It's working for the people of this country. This event is a big part of it. These marches in dozens of cities around the country and even around the world is going to help show the strength of this movement, but it wouldn't happen without each and every one of you doing the work every single day to let people know that we can do this for ourselves, that this is now real, it's immediate, the need is more urgent than ever. Thank you so much for being in this vanguard, and for so many of you who supported my campaign from when it was really not terribly mainstream to the point where we were in contention, and you haven't seen anything yet because this movement just continues to grow. I get messages every single day. Everyone involved with the universal basic income movement gets messages every day where people are waking up to the reality that we must do this for ourselves. So let's do it. Let's show them what we've got. Let's keep on making the case. Let's work for it, and let's give ourselves hopefully something to celebrate in the very, very near term. Thank you very, very much. Look forward to seeing you out on the streets for marches and everything else that we're going to be doing. See you all soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy and Andrew. It's so awesome to be able to hear them talk about what the experience has been like over the last few years and where we find ourselves today. And they really set a great foundation for the different conversations or different talking points that we're going to have a chance to hear during the event tonight. I think one of the things that we know based on where we are right now in as a kind of global economy and the United States, kind of where we are politically and socially. This has been a pretty difficult year, and more people are really understanding and experiencing the volatility of our economy and what it means to have extreme struggle and tumult around around their income. And so when we go into and really think about the progress that we've made today, we must first really think about not only COVID, but the uprising of Black lives and the demand for social justice and kind of all of those important components that have been a huge part of what we've all been supporting and engaged with over the last 6 months. So I want to go ahead and introduce John Matthews from the Justice Collaborative, Reverend Liz Theo-Harris from the Poor People's Campaign, and Charles Booker, who's founder of Hood to the Holler and a Kentucky Senate candidate, to talk a little bit more about this intersectionality of racial and economic justice and the role that UBI has to play in really closing some really significant gaps that we're experiencing for some of our most marginalized and disenfranchised communities.
Greetings. My name is John Matthews. I'm Director of Community Engagement and Senior Legal Counsel at the Justice Collaborative. I bring you greetings from Long Beach, California. Thanks so much for all of you who are participating in the Basic Income March. And thank you to all the grassroots organizers who are making sure this is a movement for basic income, not just a moment or a campaign. It is a pleasure to be in virtual community with all of you. At the Justice Collaborative, we are working every day to end extreme vulnerability and create a more free, more stable, more safe America. When I joined the organization in 2018, we were focused primarily on advocacy campaigns designed to help dismantle mass incarceration and transform the criminal legal system in the United States. This is important because there are 2.2 million people in our nation's jails and prisons, and about twice as many on parole or probation. But what was clear as we were working with organizations and directly impacted people around the country is what Rashad Robinson at Color of Change often says, which is that people experience life in total, not in the single issue silos we often use to organize our work. This lesson is especially important in these unprecedented times, in this moment, where our communities have been devastated by COVID-19, police brutality and incarceration, and extreme economic instability. We see that the poor are often over-policed and subjected to the violence of the criminal legal system. We also know that formerly incarcerated individuals often return to their communities and are left to survive with nothing. We know that American families are struggling and need direct cash to help them make ends meet. This national emergency has revealed the critical role direct cash payments can play to help people avoid the devastating effects of the COVID-19 virus, but also the preventable secondary consequences: homelessness, incarceration, food insecurity, and lack of medical care. An unmistakable demand for transformative change is growing. People are being forced to grapple with fundamental questions about how we live and organize ourselves as a country. There are visionary leaders stepping forward with bold plans to meet the urgency of the moment. Together, we can end the politics of racial resentment and dehumanization that has created an incarceration crisis and harmed immigrants and their families. We can build a just and sustainable economy, and we can unrig our democracy so that people get the full value of their labor and every person's voice and vote matters. This movement is important. Universal basic income would provide every person with the resources to obtain basic necessities and care during this time of tremendous economic and social uncertainty. It would ensure that those who have lost their jobs, health insurance, and childcare are able to continue to feed their families, provide health coverage, and afford their homes. It would mean that those living in shelters can move to hotels to practice safe social distancing. In short, universal basic income can and will provide dignity, security, and economic stability to every person in this country, right now and in the future. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to working with all of you. You can find me at John A. Matthews 2 on Twitter, and I'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.
My name is Reverend Dr. Liz Theo-Harris, Director of the Cairo Center for Religions, Rights, and Social Justice at Union Theological Seminary, and co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. With our 43 state coordinating committees, dozens of national faith bodies, and hundreds of partner organizations, who organized the largest and most expansive wave of nonviolent civil disobedience in the 21st century in the spring of 2018, and the largest social media gathering of poor and low-income people on June 20th, 2020. The complete inadequacy of our nation's welfare system, the lack of a jobs or income guarantee are a few of the things that have been most clearly revealed through this crisis. The millions now being thrown into poverty are joining the 140 million poor and low-income people who were already confronting a threadbare social safety net that has been systematically undermined for decades, undergirded by a theological discourse about personal responsibility, work reconciliation, and the alleged depravity of poor people. The Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, includes in its leadership welfare rights leaders from the 1968 Poor People's Campaign, low-wage workers, family farmers, families without health care. And we all demand the immediate establishment of a permanent, guaranteed, adequate income for all as part of a broader moral agenda that is the only long-term solution for this crisis. We have a saying in our work that is when we lift from the bottom, that everybody rises. In this moment of a crisis in this country, we indeed have to lift everybody out. We need a guaranteed adequate income because somebody's been hurting our people for far too long, and we won't be silent anymore.
Over 57 years ago, Dr. King told the world that he had a dream. And in that dream, it included a fight for guaranteed annual income. Because he knew then what we know now, that in order to end poverty, to secure civil rights and justice, and to uproot racism, we have to invest in people. We have to prioritize people. The fight for equity, the fight that he led then, we're still leading it now. And as I stood on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial this year celebrating the March on Washington, I shared those words that our fight isn't done. See, I'm a state representative in Kentucky, and I live in what has for years been the poorest zip code in our Commonwealth. And seeing struggle passed down generation after generation, poverty being perpetuated, it's let me know that nothing will change unless we do the work, unless we tell a new story, unless we prioritize people and fight back. And you know what? That's what we're doing now. We're telling the world that we're ready to uplift the voices of regular folks that have been working so hard for so long, only to be exploited and abandoned and thrown off the cliff. We're standing up now to say that we want a brighter future for our children. We want stronger communities, and we want justice in a real sense, in our pocketbook, because we deserve it. We deserve an equity stake in our future. We deserve to be able to look our children in the eyes and say that you don't have to struggle the same way that we did and our grandparents did. The fight for universal basic income is a fight for the soul of our nation. It is a fight for our priorities as human beings, and it is a fight that we are poised to win. I'm so proud of Basic Income March. I'm so proud to be a part of this movement because I know that together we're unstoppable, that we can and we will end poverty, that we will be able to uplift communities all over the country that have been weighed down by the fact that their options were few, their resources were scarce, and hopelessness seemed to define their days. A brighter future is before us, and we're leading forward. And I'm proud to say that together we're going to make it happen. So as we lead into this income march, let's be fired up like never before. Let's push harder. Let's demand accountability. And yes, let's win a universal basic income.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John and Reverend Liz and Charles. Just such inspiring words, and I got goosebumps through parts of that for sure. I think one of the things that's really important that has happened this year is in many ways the coalition building across different organizations, across different social justice, racial justice organizations that are fighting for so many important things that that really we recognize even more today with COVID is of critical importance. And so it's been just really wonderful to work with these organizations and to be able to know that they're doing the work beside us to make sure that guaranteed income and this idea that everybody should start with some kind of income floor is continuing to be part of the conversation across all of these different movements. I also just wanted to call out that Charles was a Senate candidate in Kentucky, and he ran an amazing race. He got over 230,000 votes, and he leaned hard into UBI. It was not a deterrent. It really was from him getting votes. And so I think in many ways his campaign was a great nod to our political establishment that UBI is an issue that we can win elections on and get significant votes for. So definitely legitimizing and mainstreaming the UBI concept and idea, which has just been awesome. I think that as we move into really thinking a little bit further about this intersectionality of social and economic justice. It's an important moment to start to talk about Mayors for a Guaranteed Income. This has been an amazing organization that has really just been founded in the last several months. We want to make sure that that we give them some time, some effort, some accolades, but in as well, as important is to be able to hear from them what their vision is, why they formed, and why it is that so many of these important leaders across our nation are fighting for a guaranteed income. So we're going to go ahead and start this off with a really great, powerful video from Economic Security Project, which is one of the co-founders of Mayors for a Guaranteed Income, and then move right into hearing from Mayor Tubbs and several other mayors that are part of Mayors for a Guaranteed Income, so we can just understand a little bit more about how we can support the work that they're doing and just continue to widen that net as we grow the movement.
All the mayors are saying together, we will pilot, we will test, and we will also speak to the need for our constituents to have immediate cash assistance now, particularly during a time of COVID-19, and particularly during a time when people are out in the streets protesting and demanding a change from the status quo.
Now, one of the answers, it seems to me, is a guaranteed annual income, a guaranteed minimum income for all people and for all families of our country.
We have got to get to the place within this country where we stop connecting poverty as a moral failing. Individuals are poor because a lot of these systems are not aligned to allow you an opportunity to get ahead financially and to have economic security.
Hello, my name is Michael Tubbs. I am the founder of the Mayors for Guaranteed Income and also the architect behind the first mayor-led pilot in the United States. And when we talk about a universal basic income, we're talking about something as fundamental as the notion that every human being on this planet deserves the opportunity to live with dignity, deserves the dignity of an economic floor and the chance to live a life free of the scourge of poverty, of scarcity, of lack. And as someone who grew up as a child of a single mother, I remember watching how my mother worked and worked and worked and worked to barely get an inch ahead. And I'm so excited to be part of this global movement with you all in demanding basic dignity for all of our people. The ability to breathe, to feel less anxious, and to provide for the basic necessities we know are necessary to be human. COVID-19 and the reckonings globally around ending white supremacy and racism have really brought into the center the fact that for far too many people in our countries, in our cities, in our world are needlessly suffering from lack, from economic insecurity, and from not having the agency to make the right decisions for themselves and their families. And that's why I started the Mayors for Guaranteed Income Network, with an understanding that, at least in the United States, that mayors are the moral leaders that can speak to not just where we are, but where we should be. And we understand that this idea is one that's deeply rooted in the American story, from Thomas Paine to MLK to folks like Vice President nominee Kamala Harris, who are all saying that folks need cash to build a floor, to have a steady foundation, to live the lives of dignity we all deserve. So again, count me as your brother in this global struggle, in this global movement, and count all the mayors in the Guaranteed Income Network as your partners in paving the way for a more just, a more humane, and a more dignified existence for all people on this earth. Thank you.
Hi, I'm St. Paul Mayor Melvin Carter. Now more than ever, Amid this enduring public health and economic crisis, too many people in communities across our nation are struggling to make ends meet. Just as those in our asset holding class are experiencing a stock market with record returns, right here in St. Paul, over 70,000 have filed for unemployment benefits since the start of this pandemic. It's time for our generation to sign a new social contract and to rethink how our economy connects with and supports all of our neighbors. Unconditional cash transfers that are guaranteed every month will not only help families pay their bills, put food on the table, and keep a roof over their head. It'll also make sure everyone can access the economic security that remains elusive for too many in our country. We are launching our Guaranteed Income Demonstration Project in St. Paul later this month to help realize this vision in our community. Our pilot will help demonstrate the impact of guaranteed income for families in our community and will help show how guaranteed income programs can boost communities everywhere. A guaranteed income is an idea that is becoming reality quickly and stands to make a real difference in St. Paul and across our nation. Join us in this movement. Help us make sure that everyone can access and participate in the economic security of our country as we move forward together and build a pathway that works for all of us.
When this pandemic hit, Los Angeles came together and raised more than $36 million to ensure our hardest hit families would not go hungry or homeless. Yet the folks helped by this effort were struggling to stay afloat long before COVID-19. And our success reinforced a core question. What if a guaranteed income had already been part of our policies and programs before the virus upended our lives and our livelihoods? It's an idea with the potential to address challenges, inequities, and disparities that are laid bare by this crisis. Because poverty is a silent killer of people and dreams, especially in communities of color. And a guaranteed income could be the first step to closing gaps in health, wealth, and housing that have trapped too many generations in cycles of unequal opportunity and economic despair. But this isn't just about a safety net alone. It's also about the fundamental fabric of a fair future. And I challenge all cities to help build that foundation of stability and security before the next public health crisis strikes, and to build a national movement for getting this done in Congress, so that every American will know that when disaster hits, there's something to catch her.
Hello, I'm Keisha Lance Bottoms, the mayor of Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm proud to join mayors across the country as we explore guaranteed minimum income as a way that will help our vulnerable residents meet their most urgent needs. A guaranteed income is a practical way to supplement America's social safety net during the COVID-19 pandemic and beyond. A regular cash payment to individuals will empower our most vulnerable residents with the ability to address their most essential needs, such as housing, food, and transportation. It can also help with unpredictable expenses and external shocks during these uncertain times. A guaranteed income can be part of a long-term solution to economic insecurity, inequality, and poverty. Atlanta is the cradle of the civil rights movement and home to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As part of his campaign to abolish poverty, Dr. King called for a guaranteed income to be established more than 50 years ago. He understood that economic security is an individual right and a basic need for everyone to thrive in this country. As part of this powerful coalition of mayors, I look forward to the meaningful work we will do to push our communities forward as we continue to fight for justice, for fairness, and for human dignity. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf, a proud founding member of Mayors for Guaranteed Income. Oaklanders are struggling more than I've ever seen because of the double pandemics of COVID-19 and demands for racial justice. In Oakland, guaranteed income is not only a way of effectively and efficiently meeting the immediate needs of our people, but doing it in a way that respects each person. Each family has a unique set of circumstances, their own story, and their own path to financial security. Guaranteed income, its time has come.
Hi, I'm Bill Peduto, Mayor of the City of Pittsburgh. 2020 has been a challenging year for all of us. By providing a guaranteed basic income and starting it in cities, we have this opportunity to show what Dr. King talked about so many years ago. So many of the problems that we face are simply the symptoms of poverty. And if we're going to attack poverty, we should be attacking it at its root. As we look to make a better society, as we look at police reform, and we see the struggles that our residents are facing because of this pandemic, there has never been a greater opportunity to show that Dr. King was right. Global basic income does more than just provide money to people that desperately need it. It provides hope and opportunity.
The pandemic has exacted a heavy financial toll on many Pattersonians. In fact, I hear from families every day who are struggling to purchase groceries, pay their rent, and even get access to the internet. So the Mayors for Guaranteed Income has come at the right time for Patterson. It's time to lift up our community, and this is the infusion that we need now in Patterson.
Hi, this is Providence Mayor Jorge Alorza. The world around us is changing fast, and we need new solutions to meet new challenges. The truth is that companies of today are not producing as many jobs as companies of the past. And many of the jobs that used to provide a ticket to the middle class have been shipped overseas or are now performed by robots. America is built on the idea that if you work hard and play by the rules, that you can expect to move ahead. But this is less so today than at any other time in recent history. We've become a more divided and stratified society, and the opportunities to move up the economic ladder are becoming more scarce. I believe it is un-American for someone to have to work 2 jobs and still fall behind in our country. That's why I have joined Mayors for a Guaranteed Income. We've seen from pilots in other cities that the programs work and that they offer a leg up to those who need it the most. We're living in a moment right now that is challenging us to think in new and open ways about the future of work and about how people access the middle class. I believe that guaranteed income should be part of the solution, and I look forward to moving this work ahead. Thank you.
Hi everyone, this is Mayor Sean Patterson Howard of Mount Vernon, New York, and we are excited to be part of the Mayors for Guaranteed Income initiative. COVID-19 has exposed what many of us have known for years, and that this country, so many of our families live under economic insecurity. And so what are we looking to do? We are trying to provide economic relief and stability to families who are going from paycheck to paycheck, trying to figure out, am I able to pay my rent, my utilities, am I able to buy food for my family, and have just a little bit left over to maybe enjoy a movie or go out to dinner. And so cash grants is what makes me excited about this program, because this money will go directly to those who need it most, and it will help stabilize their households. And so please join us as we advocate, as we create policies, and as we raise money to increase pilot programs across the country. We're looking to make a difference. Thank you.
We're really proud in Long Beach to have a universal basic income pilot that has been already approved by our city council. And so we're beginning that work of course, all of our Mayors for a Guaranteed Income partners. We're talking to folks here in the community, and we're excited next year to put together this really great pilot. Now, just recently, we put something together during this COVID pandemic to help families and gave them $1,000 a month for 3 months. For almost 1,900 families across the city. And so we are collecting that information. We think that's going to be a successful program. And that program will really serve as a guide for us as we put together our UBI pilot program for next year. We're grateful that this group exists. I think we'll be able to all learn from each other from across the country. And most importantly, really uplift a really great, I think, movement that's happening across the country to ensuring that every person has their basic needs met and that they all have enough to support themselves and their families. So here in Long Beach, we're totally in on UBI, and we're excited for our pilot program next year.
Awesome. that was super, super awesome to see all those different mayors who have joined with the Mayors for a Guaranteed Income group and are really putting into words so many things that we all in the community have been thinking and saying and advocating for, but to hear it coming from people who are leading cities large and small is really inspiring. And it's been great to read all of the chat as people have been hearing and listening to these inspiring leaders. Absolutely, really, really exciting to see the establishment of Mayors for Guaranteed Income. And we anticipate more and more mayors joining that network over time. I think it's very clear that right now, our Congress is really letting us down in the ability for us to really respond to, as a nation, the dire economic circumstances that we find ourselves in and that so many millions of people find themselves in. And when you see that there are still people, even though Congress may not be doing their part, when you see leaders of large cities like Los Angeles, Oakland, Atlanta, that are willing to put their political capital behind something as important as guaranteed income, it's really very inspiring. And for us in the grassroots community, I think it's an opportunity for us to be able to not feel like we're in this alone, and to know that there's these kind of oases of cities across the nation where we can find support and find community around this issue. But of course, the Mayors for a Guaranteed Income, that's not the only area that we saw some significant growth in our leaders talking about this idea of direct cash payments. Under COVID, and really very immediately in response to COVID, several members of our Congress actually presented legislation that's designed specifically to include ongoing cash payments to people during this pandemic and economic crisis. So this is essentially emergency UBI, but there were multiple bills that were presented. And this was really an exciting and important moment for us as a movement to be able to hear people who are sitting in Congress talking about this as a real solution, and in some ways the only real moral solution that our leaders and our government should be instituting right now under our current situation. So we want to spend a little bit of time looking at and thinking about, hearing about this experience. We're going to start with Natalie Foster from Economic Security Project. They actually were responsible for writing Emergency Money for the People, the bill that several senators and representatives presented. It was really critical. As soon as COVID was hitting, Economic Security Project started writing the legislation so that our Congress members really could very quickly respond and make sure that ongoing cash payments was at the table as negotiations for CARES happened. So really amazing work from Economic Security Project. In many ways, the work that they've been doing for years, they were poised and ready to be able to meet this moment. So we'll hear a little bit from Natalie Foster. We'll hear some from Scott Santens, UBI Advocate Extraordinaire. And we also have just pulled together some clips from news stories and from different Congress people talking about why they've decided that direct cash payments to people is so important here, because it's just been such an amazing thing this year to see so many people start to have this conversation. So let's go ahead and hear from Natalie first and move through.
Hi, everyone. This is Natalie Foster, co-chair and co-founder of the Economic Security Project. And we launched the Economic Security Project 4 years ago to figure out how we'd create a guaranteed income in the United States. We were very motivated by the fact that most Americans could not pull together $400 in an emergency if they needed to, that a quarter of Americans, despite working full-time, are on some form of public assistance because wages are so low, and the fact that wealth concentration was at the levels akin to prior to the Great Depression. Wealth concentration was at an all-time high in America. And this has all been exacerbated by COVID and the economic crisis that we're now in. The silver lining of the moment is that there's more political space opened for big ideas like a guaranteed income. And so we've been very focused on how to include monthly checks until the economic crisis is over into any stimulus bill that passes and the first 100 days of any new administration post-November. This has been fast. It's gone from an idea to actual bills in Congress in just a matter of months and years. And thanks to so much of your work, thanks to groups like Income Movement, who have made sure that in every city in America, there's people advocating for a guaranteed income. There are bills in the Senate that would create a monthly income until the crisis is over. There's bills in the House. There's bills on both sides of the aisle, Republican and Democrat, advocating for this. We have bills now, which we've never had. We have the polling. 88% of Americans want checks until the crisis is over, and that is true across all political stripes right now. We have the bills, we have the polling, but we are not quite there yet. It is important that whatever passes include monthly checks, and it's why marches like this could not be more important to keep doing. So thank you for what you do. Thanks to Income Movement for what they do. And let's go make sure that we can guarantee an income in the next several weeks as we respond to this great crisis in the United States. Thanks so much.
So what I'm proposing, along with Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts and Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, is that during the course of the COVID crisis, where now we have over 40 million people who lost their jobs within the last 100 days, that they will receive $2,000 per individual, $4,000 as a couple, $2,000 per child a month through the term of the pandemic plus 3 months thereafter. And the point behind it that maybe some would think of as even a moral point, is just about humanitarian concerns and priorities. 40 million people plus lost their jobs within the last 100 days. Most did not have savings. See that statistic about can't afford a $400 unexpected expense. And this is through no fault of their own. And what we want, what is just the right thing to do, is that one, the government should be here for the people in a moment of crisis. People should be able to count on their government to see them and create a safety net for them so that these families don't fall into poverty or further into poverty during the course of this pandemic, so that they can get back on their feet when it is over. And that's what this is about. And we all benefit from that, not only as a society that is one for all, but a society that relies on each other's well-being for our own well-being.
And the way we drafted the Automatic Boost to Communities Act is they can't touch that money, has to be to people through a debit card, $2,000 a month during the pandemic. And what we do too is we think bigger and know that even after this pandemic, the impact, the irreparable harm that can happen if we don't take care of people can continue for months and a year after. So a year after the pandemic, we continue to recharge those debit cards for $1,000 a month.
I'm here with Representative Tim Ryan, my good friend Tim Ryan from Youngstown, Ohio, and we're here to discuss our Emergency Money for the People Act. You know, when this crisis hit, Tim and I said, there's an obvious solution. We've got to put money in the pockets of people who have lost income. And we have a bill that says you're going to get up to $2,000, not just one time, but for 6 months. It's common sense. People need this money to make their rent, to make their mortgage, to make sure that they can get the food and nutrition for their kids, to make sure that they can make ends meet. And the economists say this is the best way to actually stimulate the economy, create jobs, because people are spending that money. It's not parked in some investment account overseas. So it makes economic sense. It's going to actually help people. It's simple, and we're pushing to make sure this is going to be part of the next stimulus.
Happy Basic Income Week, everyone. 80% of the country now supports a second stimulus payment, and so that's extremely popular, and hopefully we can get a second one as well. So that's also just a huge step forward to see members of Congress signing on and pushing for this, to the point that even Nancy Pelosi herself came out for guaranteed income months back during this. That was, I think, also related to our own push through the income movement for that support from her. And I think that was a big win to see that we've got actually big names like her in Congress with all the power who are recognizing that there is an interest for this idea and that she can actually express support for it and talk about it in a way that I don't think she felt that she could before. I also think it's notable that we're also getting some voices coming out against basic income, and I think that that says that we're doing something right when someone like Steve Forbes comes out and makes a point of saying how basic income was going to destroy America. Like, they're really trying hard now to get people to go against it because they're worried that this is actually can happen, whereas before I don't think they took it seriously. So we're starting to see people take it seriously. So thank you all for being a part of this movement, and let's win this.
Awesome. Yay. Thank you, Scott. That's such a, I love when Scott talks about this idea that as soon as you start to get naysayers, or when you get people who are important kind of figures in our culture, feeling like it's important for them to step forward and take a stance on UBI, whether it's good or bad, that is a sign of how significant we've grown this year, and how pervasive the idea of basic income has become across all of the different strata of our society, whether it's political, economic, pop culture, the whole gamut. And of course, we see amazing progress here in the United States. We've highlighted many of those different components, but we also know that there's been incredibly important strides made in the international community. So we want to go ahead and hand it over to Guy Standing, Brulain, and Floyd Marinescu to talk a little bit about what's happening in their countries and kind of the vision for how and why we need to continue to fight for basic income.
The pandemic slump has turned basic income from being a moral and ethical imperative to being an economic imperative as well. We will only recover from this time of pandemics by moving towards a new income distribution system in which basic income is an anchor. It's not a panacea, but it will weaken the threat posed by the 8 giants of inequality, insecurity, debt, stress, precarity, the threat of automation, and above all, the threat of extinction, not only to the nature around us, but to ourselves as a civilization. And it will start reversing the trend to neo-fascist populism out there, exemplified by Trump and the terrifying things taking place in the United States. We need a basic income because it will strengthen the resilience of society, which depends on the resilience of the weakest members of society. Basic income today is not a question of choice, it's a necessity. And that is the responsibility of all of us, to put pressure on the state to move in that direction. Thank you very much.
Hi there, this is Brulain. I'm the secretary of the Spanish Basic Income Network, the organization who has been promoting the basic income over the last 15 years in Spain. Some of you might know that a recent basic income pilot experiment has been tested in the city of Barcelona over the last 24 months. Between 2017 and 2019, 1,000 poor inhabitants of the city of Barcelona has been participating in this pilot along different cash modalities, from more conditioned cash transfer to an absolute unconditioned cash transfer. Although the final results report has not been realized, The partial results told us that the experiment was quite successful regarding, for instance, school attendance, healthcare improvements, or economic stress reduction. On the other hand, the Spanish government has recently passed a law called Ingreso Mínimo Vital. The Ingreso Mínimo Vital is not basic income at all. This is a classical or traditional means-tested benefit. It has proven itself as an absolutely failure regarding the recipients and generating a lot of problematics associated with means-tested benefits. For instance, bureaucratic and administrative burdens, poor traps, stigmatization, and so on and so forth. So a lot of people, a lot of social organizations, and even practitioners who were supporting means-tested benefit are realizing that these kind of benefits are not working anymore, and that they are joining us in supporting a basic income idea. We are quite optimistic in this new movement here, and we are glad, and we want to celebrate the Basic Income March in September 19th. So we hope that the march will be successful. See you soon, and all the best.
Hello, Worldwide Advocates. I'm proud to be here as part of the income movement to present what UBI Works has been up to in Canada for the last 6 months to a year. My name is Floyd Marinescu. I'm the founder of UBI Works Canada and a CEO activist for Universal Basic Income. Andrew Yang calls me the Yang of the North, but I'm not a politician, just a concerned citizen, just like the rest of you, trying to see us move towards a more sustainable economic system where everyone can pursue their potential and no one is held back by material constraints or unsafe environments. Perhaps the world's largest basic income experiment has occurred in Canada as a response to COVID-19. Nearly 1 in 4 adults, 47% of working Canadians applied for a special benefit that was created in response to the pandemic called the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, or the CERB. This gave people $2,000 a month or $500 a week, no questions asked. In total, 8.7 million Canadians, as I mentioned, 47% of the workforce qualified and received some of these payments, some for up to 6 months. This might be one of the largest experiments in history. What did Canadians do with this money? Well, these are people who couldn't go back to work. So many of them, we see incredible stories coming in of people starting businesses, people doing volunteer work for the first time in their lives, being able to pay down debts. Governments and media will be talking about recovery programs for the next 6 months to 2 years as we transition this post-pandemic economy. And what do we see in the pandemic economy? We've seen rapid automation of jobs, 10 years moving up the timeline of the fourth industrial revolution that we are in. A lot of people won't have jobs to come back to. In this economy where wages haven't been growing for 40 years due to automation, a share of the economy is how we can evolve our economy so that it benefits everyone by directly paying us a share of our growth and a share of our productivity, because jobs aren't working for most people. Wages are not growing as faster than cost of living. This is not okay. And the same old standard jobs creation programs, same old rhetoric is not going to work. A universal dividend gives all of us a share of our economy. And we want to promote this to the worldwide community, that this is also a way that you could explain basic income in your country. So wish us luck.
That was pretty cool to hear about a lot of the different pilots, the impact of some of the pilots or some of the direct cash payments that have happened in Spain and in Canada. So thank you, Floyd and Brew, for bringing those up. I think that it's really, starting to think a little bit more about this idea of pilots. Of course, we've seen a great increase in pilots in general in the United States, conversations about it. Of course, obviously, it's one of the primary goals of Mayors for a Guaranteed Income is to increase pilots in their cities to help kind of build coalition of support with constituents towards that and be able to pull together the data that can point to the need for it on a national level and help influence Congress to make the right decision. We also see, there's lots of pilots happening. Of course, there's in the film Inherent Good that we premiered earlier this week, they highlight Magnolia Mothers Trust, which is a phenomenal pilot that's actually finished a full year cycle and is in the midst of their second. And then, of course, we've also seen in Santa Clara an amazing pilot that focuses on supporting foster youth as they transition out of care and into independence. The tireless efforts of the organization, the Fund for Humanity, has made that happen and is really focused on what is a replicable model that other cities can use to be able to implement pilots such as that. We are also seeing with COVID creative pilots or creative ways to think about how we can get cash to people. With COVID, of course, there's been a huge loss of income for millions of people. And what we found is that there's kind of a new creative wave that's happening in many ways through organizations who are trying to fill the gap that our government is currently leaving in the United States. So we want to hand it over to Humanity Forward and Steady, who are two organizations, one that's in the nonprofit space and one that's in the private sector, who has really stepped into and risen in this moment of need for so many people to make sure that that they are can pay their bills and take care of basic necessities, even if they've had a significant loss of income. So we'll hand it over to Ethan Dunn and Adam Roseman.
Good evening. My name is Ethan Dunn, and I am the program director at Andrew Yang's nonprofit organization, Humanity Forward. The need for a basic income for all has never been more urgent or more obvious. And yet, for the past 6 months, our government has proven its inability or its unwillingness to protect and to invest in us, the people. Communities, organizations, and everyday Americans across the country have stepped up to fill the void in leadership. Humanity Forward launched just 2 weeks before the COVID-19 pandemic shut down New York City. In response to the unprecedented crisis, Andrew Yang and Humanity Forward delivered $1 million in direct cash relief to 1,000 working class families and individuals in the Bronx who had been impacted by the shutdown. Since then, Humanity Forward has delivered nearly $7 million to almost 20,000 struggling Americans all across the country through its pandemic relief programs. And our work continues. Most recently, Humanity Forward partnered with the 1K Project, an initiative founded by ordinary Americans and run by volunteers, both of whom witnessed their communities collapse in light of the pandemic and resolved to do something. 1K provides $1,000 a month for 3 months to families most impacted by the pandemic, and Humanity Forward has committed to matching up to $1 million in contributions to families helped by 1K. To learn more about Humanity Forward's pandemic relief programs, please visit www.movehumanityforward.com. As we know, the need for a basic income will not subside with the reopening of the economy or the development of a vaccine. That's why Humanity Forward, along with many of the wonderful partner organizations responsible for making this evening happen, continues the work to fund, design, and implement basic income trials throughout the United States. UBI trials like the Hudson Up UBI pilot in Hudson, New York, provide the evidence our pro-UBI lawmakers need to draft and put forth meaningful basic income legislation that has a shot at being passed. Combined with the political power of Humanity Forward's and income movement's endorsements, and the grassroots energy of you all listening at home, the research these programs yield have the potential to truly move the ball forward in making UBI a reality in America. Thank you all for your tremendous activism and the tireless work you do to strengthen this movement. Let's make UBI happen together. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Adam Roseman, and I'm extremely fortunate to lead a company called Steady. We're a young company, but we're so happy to have now helped over 2 million American workers in only a couple short years. Our business is focused on building a platform that helps America's workforce to increase their earnings. This is a big job, a big mission, and it takes a lot of time, but we feel so happy to have the chance to work on such an important cause. From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank everybody for being here today to support the urgent need for a basic income for America's workforce. Since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, along with our partners at the Workers Lab, we will have given away over $3 million in emergency cash grants to Steady members by the end of October. And those are to Steady members whose income we saw evaporate due to COVID-19. We're continuing to raise more and more funds to help more and more of our members who have suffered traumatically during this time. We are also now extremely fortunate to be working with two congressional candidates, Donna Imam in Texas Congressional District 31 and David Kim in California Congressional District 34, helping to run basic income pilots in their Austin and Los Angeles district areas. We were so incredibly excited to learn about the UBI platforms that they were running on for Congress, and we help significantly that they are elected to office this November. We're taking all of the data from these basic income pilots with Donna and David, in addition to all of the data from our sizable cash grant programs, and building studies that help to show the positive impact that this extra cash had on the grant recipients, helping them to get on their feet and live lives that are more fruitful and more productive to our entire society. We plan on taking this data and, along with our partners, ensuring that it gets into the right hands to further this collective cause. I want to thank the Basic Income March so much for organizing this amazing event, even during these extremely difficult times. I want to thank all of you for joining us. Thank you for your support for such an amazing, critical cause at a critical moment in our nation's history. We will continue to stand together with you to help ensure that we build a society where a basic income is ensured for all Americans and where the American dream is real.
I love the creativity that Steady is using when they're thinking about this idea of building pilots, specifically in districts where there's UBI candidates running, and thinking, in very strategic ways about how to build excitement, interest, and just kind of understanding within a community around what basic income is, what it looks like, and what the impact can be, and then immediately giving them an opportunity to vote for a candidate who's going to fight for that when they go to the polls in November. I think it's really an amazing model that that we're excited about potentially expanding and really thinking in more kind of bigger ways when it comes to the 2022 election. So really excited about that. Love hearing about these really cool kind of creative ways that we're thinking about how to work across lots of different sectors to bring people together and to ultimately kind of widen and grow the movement. So we've heard a lot from from a lot of different sectors, from social justice, Mayors for a Guaranteed Income, international, pilots in the private sector. We haven't heard from candidates. So we want to go ahead and give a few minutes to a few of the candidates who are strong, deep UBI candidates running for Congress, and people that are going to be able to be voted for in the November elections. So we'll hand it over to some candidates to speak for a few minutes.
Hi, my name is David Kim. I'm running to represent California's 34th District in Congress. And $1,000 a month universal basic income is a foundational component of my core platform. I've been drawn to UBI as a policy because I've seen how our current system, built upon means-tested relief, fails to serve our communities. It's too easy for any of us to have the floor ripped out from under our feet and to keep on falling. UBI, though, would provide a permanent solution to economic anxiety that would allow us to cover an emergency, save for the future, or for many, simply work one job instead of 2 to 3. For most families that I've met a lot, where the dad works by day and the mom works by night, and their finances are stretched so thin that the children never get to spend time with both parents at once. I myself have had to work 2 to 3 jobs at a time, putting in legal work by day and driving for Uber and Lyft by night. And you can't tell me that this is a healthy way for our country to grow. A basic income would accomplish so much. We could reduce costs on both ends, saving money on the burdensome administrative costs that come from the most inefficient means-tested relief programs. And we could save productive time for all of us who need government support and those who need it the most, and have to waste dozens of hours a week proving they deserve it. We can finally give ourselves, each other, the time to pursue the better life that we've all dreamed of. Our lives were not meant to spend every waking hour at work, scrounging for spare time for even getting that slightest extra wage. Work is meant to sustain life and not the other way around. Our future is unknown, and there's a strong chance automation drives us all out of our jobs. And whether that is 2 or 10 or 20 years down the road, we need to be ready when the layoffs start occurring, because they've already happened, and because it could happen to any of us continually. We shouldn't be left to fall into an abyss, and we all deserve a better floor to stand on, because only then will we be able to grow. And so that's why I support a universal basic income. Thank you.
It's so easy right now to get lost in the chaos of our day-to-day lives, to just feel like we're one drop in an ocean, seemingly so small and insignificant. But when all these drops of water come together, we realize how powerful a shift in the tide can truly be. My campaign is attempting to make history and get the first Democrat elected in 139 years. For too many people, it seems like the deck is stacked against them. They work hard, sometimes multiple jobs at the same time. They go to school, they get the degrees, they do everything that they're told will make them successful, and it doesn't. We're living in this mindset of scarcity. We're told that we don't have the money or the resources, and we know that it's just not true. The freedom dividend will save lives. End of story. The freedom dividend is a really important part of my platform. The residents here in East Tennessee are facing poverty at an extraordinary level. I meet many people in my communities who don't have running water, electricity, internet access, quality education, or opportunity to good jobs. This is a massive problem that people are facing here in East Tennessee, and the freedom dividend would be immensely helpful to bring people up out of poverty and provide a basic floor level of decency and humanity to everybody here.
We're asking for something basic. When we talk about universal basic income, what we're saying is, look, we have enough wealth in this world to ensure every single person has the ability to survive comfortably, meaning they can put a roof over their heads, meaning that they are not suffering from hunger, that they have enough food to put on their table, that they have the ability to go see a doctor, and do preventative care. These are things that are, by the way, we are able to do today, right now. If anybody tells you that we don't have enough money to cover every single person in the United States, definitely, and not only that, but across the world, that we can provide that to every single person. That is why I am a big proponent of UBI, that this is a financially solvable problem for every single person. So that's what led me to be a big supporter, and it is part of my platform, Real Pay for All. And I'll just mention very quickly here, Real Pay for All is this concept that if you work full-time for a living, you should not only be able to pay for your basic needs, but you should be able to thrive, which means you should be able to save for the American dream of putting a down payment on a home, and you should be able to comfortably retire after working decades in the industry. And this is something that can be done, and it can be financially solved. And I like to say our campaign is bringing the financial solution for the things that we believe are the morally right thing to do.
I hope you are feeling excited and energized to move universal basic income forward. And the most immediate and effective thing we can do is get folks elected to Congress who are running on universal basic income. This Monday, there's going to be a massive phone banking effort for 2 incredible candidates that I love, Donna Imam in Austin, Texas, and David Kim in Los Angeles, California. If Donna and David get into the Capitol building, you know they're going to end up being champions for universal basic income. And all we have to do is get on the phone and reach out to folks in their districts and make sure that they win. So let's do it. Let's support Donna and David. Let's give ourselves something to celebrate in November and get universal basic income passed in this country as soon as possible. Thank you all.
Absolutely. Yes, Andrew is so right. In order for us to be able to make the strides that we need from a political standpoint, which is the ultimate goal, get enough people into that Congress that's ready to not only support a bill, but pass it, put their neck on the line to make sure that that they can build enough political will in our government to be able to pass basic income. So I think it's really important and wonderful to hear all of these different perspectives across all of the different sectors. But I think one thing that we want to make sure, and Andrew really does bring it up, you know, as he talked about this idea of phone banking and text banking and supporting UBI candidates, basically during COVID, you know, giving candidates the best chance of becoming a household name, which is through phone conversations. You know, canvassing is not possible right now, and so in a lot of states, in most states, and that's really a key way that most grassroots candidates can win an election. And so right now their hands in many ways are tied, but we do have these amazing tools that with volunteers like you guys can really actually help kind of penetrate what's happening right now with everybody being in their homes, and give an opportunity for people to learn more about candidates like David Kim and Donna Imam and Blair Walsingham. So, but what's the heart of that is really you guys, the grassroots community. You know, we've talked about, when we think at Income Movement, when we talk about this idea of building a movement, we think about it in three pillars. One is thought leadership and really pushing hard. And we've heard from an amazing amount of people who are really working in the thought leadership space for advocating for basic income. We also think about the political impact side of things. We've heard a lot about that, from legislation to sitting Congress people to new candidates. But the third piece, and it's really in some ways the most critical kind of leg of the stool, is the grassroots side. And the Basic Income March is our opportunity to continue this work, to show the growth that we've made as a community globally. It's also an opportunity for us to be able to tell our fellow community members, our local media, national media, and our local and state and national leaders that right now this is critical and that we're not going away. And so we're really excited to be able to have this really important annual event to rally around together as a community. I do want to just highlight some of the most important strides that we've made as a grassroots community. In 2020, we've sent over 135,000 letters to Congress demanding that they include ongoing cash payments to people. So as Economic Security Project was doing that work, and some of the other organizations were trying to apply pressure to Congress from the backside, we were flooding Congress members with letters telling them that they need to include ongoing cash payments as part of the response to COVID. That's an amazing feat, and that's thousands and thousands of people coming together. 1.6 million people signed a petition on change.org demanding that $2,000 a month be included in the stimulus package that as Congress was building the CARES Act. Huge numbers of people are understanding what the importance of cash payments are. And we've had over 80 in-person events this year together that have been opportunities to both celebrate our movement, but also to apply pressure to Congress. We've had car parades throughout the summer. And now tomorrow we're gonna come together and we're going to be very kind of loud and public with our communities that basic income is an absolute requirement of what we need to be having happen right now. But you know, in the near term, emergency UBI is critical. We have in many ways kind of the political will to start to look at that. We have an election coming up where we might actually be able to emphasize the importance of a new set of leaders to think about real ways and innovative ways to solve our problems. We also have an opportunity to make sure that this issue stays on the front burner when 2021 starts and all of the new leadership comes into office. So we have a lot ahead of us, but we also have accomplished so much together, and it's just been amazing to be part of such a thriving and energized and hopeful group of people as we do this work together. So Income Movement is excited to be able to continue the work. We want to make sure that that you all come out tomorrow in your communities. We have not only 46 events across the globe, but people all across the globe are also, if there's not events in their city, they're taking a walk, they're marching in solidarity, they're taking pictures of themselves marching and using the hashtag Basic Income March 2020 to say that in solidarity they are marching even though there isn't an event in their town. They're marching in solidarity with the idea that we must pass a universal basic income. We must pass emergency UBI in the short term and work to get a permanent one passed as well. So thank you so much to everybody. We have just a kind of last little piece here, but we cannot wait to see you. And on behalf of the sponsors of the Basic Income March, which is Income Movement, Fund for Humanity, and Steady, we want to make sure that, that you all have a safe, wonderful time tomorrow, and we look forward to seeing you out in the streets.